Catch up with us on Newsfeed Business. The European Central Bank cut interest rates Thursday and kept the door open to further policy easing. It was the fifth ECB rate cut since June, as concerns over lackluster economic growth supersede worries about persistent inflation. Markets expect 2 or 3 more cuts this year, driven by arguments that the biggest inflation surge in generations is nearly defeated and the flagging economy needs relief. The ECB reaffirmed disinflation was well on track and welcomed slower growth in wages, which should help bring down inflation in the domestically focused part of the economy.
We are not pre-committing to a particular rate path. The economy is still facing headwinds, but rising real incomes and the gradually fading effects of restrictive monetary policy should support a pickup in demand over time. Is the recovery delayed? First of all, there is recovery. I think that's the first thing that we have to keep at the front of our mind. We went from a very low 23 to almost double the growth in 24. Now, granted, it is not at potential yet, but it's certainly a recovery. And given the job market, given the real income increase, we have good reason to believe that consumption will pick up and will continue to support this recovery process that we expect to continue.
With the Eurozone economy stagnating in the last quarter due to industrial recession and weak consumption, the ECB is seen sticking to its easing path, even after the U.S. Federal Reserve kept rates unchanged Wednesday and hinted at a lengthy pause. The ECB policymakers are likely to have breathed a sigh of relief at their meeting after U.S. President Donald Trump's new administration did not impose blanket trade tariffs as feared, although the threats he made have cast a shadow on the outlook. Meanwhile, Lagarde dismissed any speculation of cryptocurrency entering the ECB's banking system.
I think there's a view around the table of the Governing Council, and most likely the General Council as well, that reserves have to be liquid, that reserves have to be secure, that they have to be safe, that they should not be plagued by the suspicion of money laundering or other criminal activities. And as a result, I'm confident that reserves will not enter, that bitcoins will not enter the reserves of any of the central banks of the General Council.
The Pan-European Stock 600 closed up 0.6%. Germany's 10-year bond was down for the day. Europe also finished Thursday sideways. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday said he would likely decide by the end of the day Friday whether to indeed put a 25% tariff on imports of Mexican and Canadian oil that would take effect on February 1st. Trump has repeatedly warned Mexico and Canada, two of the United States' top trading partners, he will impose tariffs on Saturday if the two countries do not end shipments of fentanyl and the flow of migrants across U.S. borders.
About tariffs on Canada and Mexico, 25%. That's coming on Saturday?
That's coming on the 1st, okay. Saturday. We'll be announcing the tariffs on Canada and Mexico for a number of reasons. Number one is the people that have poured into our country so horribly and so much. Number two are the drugs, fentanyl, and everything else that have come into the country. And number three are the massive subsidies that we're giving to Canada and to Mexico in the form of deficits. And I'll be putting the tariff of 25% on Canada and separately 25% on Mexico. And we will really have to do that because we have very big deficits with those countries. Those tariffs may or may not rise with time.
Will oil be part of that, though? Because we get oil from Canada.
Oil is going to have nothing to do with it as far as I'm concerned. Oil has nothing to do with it.
There has yet to be further comment from Canada or Mexico. Brazil would reciprocate if U.S. President Trump decides to impose tariffs on Latin America's largest economy. Brazilian President Lula Inácio da Silva on Thursday called for mutual respect and hoped to increase the flow of trade between Sao Paulo and Washington. It's after Trump this week named the country among those he believes meant the U.S. harm, threatening potential tariffs.
Se ele taxar os produtos brasileiros.
It's very simple. If he taxes Brazilian products, there will be reciprocity from Brazil in taxing products that are exported to the United States. For my part, what I want is to improve our relationship with the United States. Export more, if necessary, import more, if necessary, and to maintain our 200-year relationship.
The U.S. is a large buyer of Brazilian oil, steel products, coffee, aircraft, and orange juice, while the South American country buys energy products, pharmaceutical goods, and aircraft parts from the U.S., among other products. A Brazilian official had previously said the country hoped its trade deficit with the U.S. would help it avoid tariffs pledged by Trump on many nations. Well, Asian shares wavered on Friday, weighed down by the return of tech-heavy South Korean stocks from holidays, but relatively strong earnings from U.S. tech giants kept risk sentiment intact, while tariff threats pushed the dollar and gold prices higher. With markets in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan still closed for the Lunar New Year, the return of South Korea grabbed the spotlight in Asia. The benchmark Kospi slid 1% after China's DeepSeek unveiled earlier this week a breakthrough in cheap AI models that triggered a global market rout. Shares of Samsung Electronics, which projected limited first quarter earnings growth on Friday, fell 3%, while SK Hynix, a key supplier to NVIDIA, slipped 8%. One analyst said the DeepSeek development may create some uncertainty and put some pressure on valuations of AI players in the short term, but it does not alter the medium to long-term outlook. In Japan, the yen was a touch stronger at 154.19 to the U.S. dollar, having already climbed more than 1% for the week. This far on expectations of further rate increases from the BOJ this year. In commodities, gold rose to $2,799, announced to hit record levels, and was on course for a 6.5% rise in January, its strongest monthly performance since March. Oil prices rose in early Asian trading Friday as investors weighed the prospect of U.S. tariffs on Canadian and Mexican crude imports that could take effect this weekend. The mean of Platts Singapore was earlier today down by 1.20%. In Washington, D.C., as authorities vow to leave no stone unturned in their investigation into the deadly midair collision between a passenger jet and an Army Black Hawk helicopter. The black boxes from the downed American Airlines plane have been recovered and are being evaluated. All 67 people involved in the tragedy were killed in the deadliest air incident in the U.S. since the 9/11 attacks in 2001. Details about the victims have yet to be released, but U.S. Senator Maria Cantwell said citizens from Russia, the Philippines, Germany were among those who perished. U.S. authorities target to release a preliminary report on the incident within 30 days.
We are all here because this is an all-hands on-deck event. And we're here to assure the American people that we are going to leave no stone unturned in this investigation. We are going to conduct a thorough investigation of this entire tragedy, looking at the facts.
Our investigative team will be on scene as long as it takes in order to obtain all of the perishable evidence and all of the fact-finding that is needed to bring us to a conclusion of probable cause. Our mission is to understand not just what happened, but why it happened, and to recommend changes to prevent it from happening again. Since we're just beginning our investigation, we don't have a great deal of information to share right now. We will keep you informed by getting regular updates as we learn more.
Divers are pausing their search and recovery efforts in the Potomac River. due to dangerous conditions. More than 40 bodies have been recovered so far. Aviation experts struggling to understand what went wrong. A former airline pilot told Reuters it was hard to understand how the Black Hawk pilot could not have seen the American Airlines jet as it was about to land at Reagan Airport. He adds there's technology in both aircraft called a traffic collision avoidance system, which can show all other aircraft that's within about a 5 or 10 mile radius.
It's very puzzling in that I believe there was one camera that caught the whole thing where it looked like the helicopter flew right into the back of the plane and they both crashed. So that's very confusing. But my overarching question is, and it's hard to know, what was the helicopter pilot thinking? The American Airlines jet was on final approach to runway 33. They're in the landing configuration, which means they have all their lights on, including landing lights. It's a clear night. How can you not see the plane?
A breakthrough in one U.S. firm's bid to revive supersonic travel. Boom Supersonic's jet just broke the sound barrier during a test flight over the Mojave Desert. Here's a full story.
The return of supersonic air travel just might have come a step closer.
There we are. XB-1 is supersonic, faster than the speed of sound.
US startup Boom Supersonic sent its XB-1 jet through the sound barrier on Tuesday. It says the test flight over the Mojave Desert marked the first time any privately funded plane has hit the landmark speed. Legendary pilot Chuck Yeager was the first human to exceed the sound barrier back in 1947. Such speeds have since become routine for many military aircraft. But supersonic travel hasn't been on offer to airline passengers for some 2 decades. That is, since the Anglo-French Concorde was retired in 2003. Its success was limited by high operating costs that made tickets very expensive. Now Boom has plans to develop a successor. Dubbed Overture, it's meant to carry up to 80 passengers across the Atlantic in about 3.5 hours. That's roughly half the time taken by a regular jet. Company CEO Blake Scholl says regulations are now the main stumbling block.
Today we have one of the silliest rules in the world, which is you can't fly supersonic over land, no matter how quiet the airplane is. And so we're picking up where Concorde left off. Initially, we'll fly right under the speed of sound over land, which is still 20% faster than a Boeing or Airbus. And over the water, we'll open up the throttles and go twice as fast.
Boom hopes those regulations will change and says Overture will be much more economical to operate than Concorde. The firm has completed construction on a factory for the new plane in Greensboro, North Carolina. It says it has 130 orders and expressions of interest from American Airlines, United Airlines and Japan Airlines. But years of research and development still lie ahead before any passenger boards a supersonic flight.
Business and economy news from around the country in a moment. Newsfeed Business will be back. Stay with us on BNC. Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey.
The Trump administration showed interest in having a closer economic relationship with the Philippines.
I think we should be prepared for changes that will take place, and a lot of them are really beyond our control.
Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on top.
This is The Scorecard, where you score the latest sports news and in-depth views. I'm Anton Rojas. Travis Kelce delivered a standout performance with Taylor Swift and WNBA star Caitlin Clark cheering him on.
Being able to represent the Philippines and bringing so much honor and pride to our country means so much to me.
10 na.
So more times 10 happy ako dati.
The Scorecard, where sports is our business and business is our sport, right here on the Bilyonaryo News channel.
We also are trying to tap the high value added semiconductor industry. So with all the geopolitical tensions in the Taiwan Straits, we are a possible destination for further high-tech investment in Clark, in Subic, where we have all our free trade zones.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb.
The questions.
What did you uncover?
Kita natin yung sa IPO. There was a violation of Section 8 of Republic Act 9511.
The issues.
Is there a problem? What's your question?
Is there a problem with the present sin tax law?
Well, we wanted 9% per year.
We clarify matters.
It could be direct IPO or indirect.
It's in the franchise law.
Okay.
So, in other words, and we were very, very cautious.
Pinky Webb is always on point.
The Commission on Elections is requiring candidates to declare in their statement of campaign expenditures the talent fees and paid endorsements. Let's get details from correspondent Hannah T. Hannah, go ahead.
Raine, candidates must declare payments for influencers and celebrity endorsers. That's a reminder from the Commission on Elections. The COMELEC will monitor more than just traditional campaign expenses in the 2025 midterm polls. Candidates must include payments to influencers and celebrities in their statement of contributions and expenditures, or SOSE. This applies even if the service was free or donated. If a candidate receives a free endorsement, they must still declare its value. Failure to comply may result in violation laws. There's no specific rule yet on how many followers make someone an influencer, but the COMELEC says it is the candidate's responsibility to justify these declarations. This move could also have tax implications. The Bureau of Internal Revenue will have to check if endorsement payments are taxed properly. Candidates will have 30 days after the elections to submit their SOSE. Failure to file may lead to penalties or disqualification from assuming. This is part of the COMELEC's efforts to ensure transparency in campaign spending. The poll body earlier issued a resolution mandating the publication of all SOSE documents on its website after the elections. The goal is to allow voters and watchdog groups to scrutinize how candidates spent their funds, including payments made to influencers and celebrities. If approved by the COMELEC and BAG, this will take effect before the official campaign period starts on February 11. Back to you, Raine.
Thanks for that report, Hannah T. President Bongbong Marcos warns of a government shutdown if the Supreme Court rules in favor of petition questioning the legality of the 2025 national budget. Marcos also says Solicitor General Bernardo Guevara will argue for government believes they are on solid ground when it comes to the budget's constitutionality.
We shut down everything. I guess that's what they want. They want the government to cease working. So yung matuloy yung kanilang mga destabilization na ginagawa.
On Tuesday, Davao Representative Isidro Ungab, former Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez, and several others went to the Supreme Court to flag alleged violations to the Constitution. These include the supposed blank items in the BICAM report. Marcos insists there were no blank items when he signed the budget. The Philippine economic growth failed to reach the government's target of 6 to 6.5% due to high inflation expectations. Jonathan Ravela, senior advisor at Reyes Tancandong and Company, tells Bilyonaryo News Channel's Business 360 people can still feel the high prices, which created expectations of a slower rate cut from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas.
So, meaning cost of doing business remained high and elevated and was very different from the expectations at the early part of the year where, people were expecting the U.S. Fed to cut more aggressively than more than 100 basis points. But the Fed delivered 100 basis points. We failed to deliver the 100 basis points. We've only done 75 basis points.
Ravelas expects the economy to grow between 5.8 to 6.3% this year.
if we look at the potential drivers for 2025, you have just infrastructure spending. Hopefully, we're expecting recovery of the consumer sector. Hopefully, we'll be able to trump inflation, but again, that remains a challenge in the near term. And of course, we're expecting the tailwinds from the national election spending. So that should try to cling to close to a 6% GDP growth. But it remains a challenge given the external factor of Trump's trade war.
The Philippines missed the train on AI chip investments. CP President Dr. Dan Lachica told Bilyonaryo news channels Follow the Money blamed past policies for driving away key investors, causing the semiconductor industry to contract 10% in 2022 and another 8% in 2023. Now the government is pushing the Create More Act to fix past mistakes, offering a 100% power cost deduction to lure chip manufacturers back. But despite these efforts, industry giants like TSMC and UMC have yet to commit. Lachica says with 3 million Filipino jobs on the line, the stakes couldn't be higher.
We kind of missed the train on this AI chips. What happened was with the previous administration and Create Law, we kind of drove away some investments that should have come to the Philippines. Our semiconductor sector is controlled primarily by multinationals. So that's good in the sense that we will continue to, especially with the investment environment, we will continue with this activities in the semiconductor end. What is concerning, though, is if the supply chain is interrupted. We have about 3 million direct and indirect workers, so we want to make sure that they get, continuous employment and, of course, grow the industry beyond where we are today.
Well, the Philippines is hoping the U.S. will see Philippine tech exports favorably. Special Assistant to the President for Investment and Economic Affairs, Frederick Go, told Reuters he hopes for relations between the U.S. and the Philippines to be improved, and he expounded on the country's GDP growth trajectory, including how it plans to bring in more investment. Meanwhile, Philippine shares closed the final trading day of the week in a bloodbath, plunging into bear market territory. That's amid the PSEI rebalancing, the inclusion of Ayala REIT, and the return of China Banking Corp in the main index, while Nickel Asia and Wilcon were shifted to the mid-cap index. Investors also continue to digest the lower-than-expected Philippine economic growth and the U.S. Federal Reserve holding the policy rate steady in the 4.25 to 4.5% range. The PSE index was down by 4% to close at 58.62, finishing the day as the worst performer in Asia. This is also so far its worst fall of the year. Among sectoral indices, only financials ended in the green, with mining and oil falling the most at almost 7%. Decliners outpaced advancers 135 to 76. Total value turnover stood at 21.6 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks also ended in the red, with Ayala Land falling the most at almost 9%. Also on Friday, the peso is currently trading at 58.39 to the U.S. dollar, weaker than yesterday's close of 58.28, amid lower than expected economic growth and the U.S. Fed's unchanged interest rate. And that's a wrap for today's Newsfeed Business. Thank you so much for making us your daily source of financial insights. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us again on Monday as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Follow the Money is next at 4:30. See you then.
50 taon na ang relasyon ng Pilipinas at China. Kaya naman, sa anibersaryo ng diplomatic relations ng dalawang bansa, binida ng isang federasyon ng Filipino-Chinese community ang matagal ng ugnayan. Sa gabi ng Chinese New Year, pinarangalan at pinuri ang ambag ng mga Chinoy sa lipunan.
Keep our bond intact in spite of the West Philippine Sea problems we have currently. We will move forward and share understanding and love between two nations.
Sabi ng Federation of Filipino-Chinese Chambers of Commerce and Industry, dapat manatiling matibay ang relasyon ng Pilipinas at China pagdating sa ekonomiya at kultura.
Para sa kinabukasan, pagkakaibigan ang kailangan.
Pinarangalan sa event ang ilang kilalang Chinoy sa larangan ng sining at media. Kinilala ang sikat na screenwriter na si Ricky Lee sa mga ambag niya sa literature. Inuwi naman ng veteranong journalist na si Jessica Soho ang Outstanding Filipino-Chinese Friendship Award in Journalism.
This award is special because I'm getting it on my 40th year as a journalist and because it's my very first from the Filipino-Chinese or the Chinoy community.
Kabilang din sa mga ginawaran ang industrial designer na si Kenneth Cobonpue. Kilala sa buong mundo ang kanyang disenyo at para sa kanya, isa itong pagkilala sa tagumpay ng mga kapwa niyang Chinoy.
I'm very honored to receive this award, not only for myself but also on behalf of all the Filipino-Chinese community.
Abala si Kenneth ngayon sa showroom niya sa BGC.
It's a more dynamic, it's a bigger space. Tsaka it also has that lifestyle na concept that I wanted. Na there's a cafe and a restaurant inside and also an art gallery on the second floor.
Pagkatapos ng awarding, nagsagawa ng button pressing ang mga opisyal ng FFCCCII para markahan ang simula ng bagong taon para sa komunidad ng mga may dugong Chinoy at pusong Pinoy. Para sa agenda, Hannah T., Bilyonaryo News Channel.